Welcome, welcome, welcome to all of you tuning in today. You are tuning into this week's Ask Schellie segment. My name is Schellie Fanfan, and I am your emotional intelligence expert. I am the CEO and founder of Ask Schellie Consulting LLC, where we bring corporations and individuals and families to their next level through the provision of psychoeducation. I'm a licensed psychotherapist here in the state of Florida. I've had the privilege for over 20 years now to bring people to a place of wholeness, to bring families to a place of wholeness, marriages, corporations, businesses to a place of wholeness through the provision of psychoeducation. And this is just maximizing your emotional intelligence quotient, really learning how people think, how they behave, why they do the things that they do. How do you motivate people? How do you resolve conflict with people? Emotional intelligence is all of that. And so I have the privilege and the purpose to enhance that emotional intelligence quotient in all of you, in the corporations that I work with, the families that I work with, the individuals that I work with. And so every week, every Tuesday at 12 o'clock, I have the privilege of sharing a question with all of you. And you guys become my consultation team as I provide feedback to the person who asked the question. This is no attempt to replace the treatment process. That is a whole different ballgame for those who need treatment, who desire treatment, who want to just break through to the next level. That's a therapeutic process. It includes signing a consent of release, truly understanding the limits and liabilities and risks of treatment, and entering into a journey with a licensed professional that can take you to your next level. Because I don't have all the tools that I need when people write in their questions, this is just a response. Prayerfully, the things that I talk about today are tools that you can add to your wellness toolbox, something that you can share with your loved ones. If the shoe doesn't fit, don't wear it. But if it does, take heed to it. Assure that you share. I do appreciate you sharing this video, sharing this feedback that I'm providing. It can be priceless to someone else if it's not for you. So today I am going to be sharing a question on emotional eating, and I do need your feedback. I want to hear your feedback. I would love your participation because I'll be asking you some questions about your eating habits as well and your relationship with food. Yes, it is a relationship with food, and I want to hear about yours. So I'd love for you to be vulnerable, to talk about what you think, to give us your perspective. So allow this to be a time of interaction. We're going to have fun with it, but we're going to also talk about some tools that all of us need in order to be the best version of ourselves. Before I get started, I want to use this as a shameless plug that I am currently pre-selling my first book collaboration. It's called Struggling to Keep the Vows. And so you can visit me at Schellie.strugglingtokeepthevowsbook.com and place your order now. It's $23.99 in advance. So excited about it. And listen, the support that I've been getting already has been, I can't even say overwhelming. It has been a blessing. Like literally the first day that I released the book and went in and saw all the purchases the same day that I posted about the book, I literally just got on my knees and just started thanking my Lord and my Savior for all of the support that I got so quick. So again, the book is called Struggling to Keep the Vows.com. That's the book. The book is Struggling to Keep the Vows. You can reach me at Schellie.strugglingtokeepthevowsbook.com. That is where you can go to make your purchase. Now, again, we are in pre-sales right now, and the support has been amazing. And so Z Fascinated said, pre-order. Thank you so much for your feedback. Thank you so much for your support. I don't know about feedback yet, but I'll need your feedback once you read it, okay? But thank you for your support. Again, that is Schellie.strugglingtokeepthevowsbook.com. Place your order today. All right, let's get into the question. And it reads, Dear Ask Schellie, get glasses so you don't struggle reading questions all day. That's me. Dear Ask Schellie, that was a joke. I am an emotional eater and I need help. Being confined to the home has made it even worse. I find myself eating very unhealthy foods all day and don't even realize it all the time. It is not until my children will ask, what happened to all the Oreos or where did all the ice cream go that I realize I have eaten it all. Can you provide me some tips to help me kick this thing? All right, emotional eaters in the house. Let me know that that's you. Say, hey, I'm guilty. Give me a heads up, a hands up. Let me go to the comments here. Give me a hands up. Give me a I'm guilty, right? Let's expose the devil together today. All right. All right. Greetings from Sacramento, California. Thank you. Greetings, California. All right. If you are guilty of, you know what? Let me not say that. Because there's way too much shame and you cannot grow in shame. You just cannot grow in shame. So we're not going to use the word guilty, but just let me know if that's you. If you are an emotional eater, let me know. Say, hey, that's me. All right. I got a hands up for Jackie. Thank you so much for your vulnerability on Instagram. I don't see any confessions yet. Shame the devil. All right. So I'm going to repeat the question and then we're going to jump into this. Dear Ask Schellie, I am an emotional eater and I need help. Being confined to the home has made it even worse. I find myself eating very unhealthy foods all day and don't realize it at the time. It's not until my children will ask, what happened to all the Oreos? Or where did all the ice cream go? That I realize I have eaten it all. Can you provide some tips to help me kick this thing? So I want to make sure that I make something clear from the beginning. Hi, Evelyn, Eric, Candy, thank you so much. Danisha, thank you so much. All right, I got another hands up from Prophet Kimberly Scott. Okay, all right, I love it. So there is a difference between a pre-existing condition and an acute condition. And basically what that means is pre-existing is that it was happening before COVID-19. And acute is as a result of COVID-19, this is what has started, right? And so the reason why I'm bringing this up is because the way that we address it and the way that we, consultation team, need to address it is that there's two different paths that we have to take to address it if it was pre-existing or if it's something brand spanking new. Now, let me say this. There are a lot of people that are saying, as a result of coronavirus, I'm experiencing this. As a result of coronavirus, this is what I'm dealing with. As a result of coronavirus, this is what's happening in my home. And I will say this, and I want you can agree or you can disagree. I want to hear from you. I feel like a lot of what's happening right now and during this pandemic is just exposing issues and circumstances and other growth potential areas that were existing before the pandemic, right? And so if we are having a hard time with this change, then we had an inability to be flexible before the coronavirus. If you had issues with adaptation now, that means that you had issues with adaptation before coronavirus. If your family members can't stand each other because you guys are confined to the same space, that means that way before the coronavirus, there was an issue there that now in being confined to the home, you can't stand your husband, can't stand your wife, you don't want to deal with your children. I think that coronavirus has exposed a lot of the growth potential area issues and circumstances that were pre-existing. You can give me an amen or you can disagree. Okay, so I want to make this clear. If this is acute, that means that I have never emotionally eaten before. I've never eaten like this before. Emotions have never driven my eating before. That is acute. The reason why I'm addressing this from a pre-existing perspective is because this is what she says, right? Let's go back to the question. She says, I am an emotional eater and I need help. Being confined to the home has made it even worse, but it means that it was already there before. So because of that, we're going to go down the pre-existing route, the pre-existing path. And so let me talk about emotional eating for a second. So emotional eating is consuming food, right? The consumption of food, the process of consuming food is driven by an extreme emotional state. And it may not necessarily always be extreme, but the emotional state is driving the consumption of the food. Emotional eating then becomes a way that someone tries to escape or avoid a non-preferred emotional state. And that emotional state can be many different things. It could be sadness, loneliness, boredom. It could be feelings of inadequacy, just stress, like really sitting down and thinking about, oh my God, is my family going to make it? Is my family going to be okay? How am I going to, pay the bills and money's not coming? Whatever it is, it's an attempt to address that or to avoid that emotional state, that non-preferred emotional state. And as a result of that, we engage in a coping mechanism in an attempt to relieve the distress that emotional state causes. And so again, it's engaging in a behavior that gives us short-term relief from that distress. Some people may say, well, that doesn't really necessarily apply to me because I eat also when I'm happy. And so again, most of the time, the same person that says, I eat when I'm happy is the same person that will say, I eat when I'm sad. And so we're finding and seeing that there are some mood regulation issues that causes the person to engage in this behavior, right? So again, we said emotional eating is an attempt to relieve ourselves from a non-preferred emotional state. And that could be so much for so many. So let's take a quick, this is just general. I'm not diagnosing anyone. I'm going to start sharing some signs. And I want you to continue to raise your hand if that's you, like, oh, that's me. Raise your hand. Let me know, right? And again, this is just for information purposes only. My mentor is on here. Hi, Dr. Joseph. Thank you so much for joining. And she says, facts, COVID-19 exacerbated what already was. For some, that's good. For others, not so much. Yes. TJ Legacy says facts on that. Yes. So a lot of what we're saying is like all new was already there. Now, don't get me wrong. We are being stretched beyond capacity right now, right? How many on this live can right now drop down into a full split? I want to hear it. Hi, Jimmy House. Can you do a full split? Let me know. How many on this live can do a full split right now? Let me see. How many flexible people that we have on here that could drop down into a full split? Jimmy, I don't know if you're saying hi to me. If you're saying yes, you could do a full split. Jackie, can you do a full split? Let me know. Can you do a full split? I would imagine that most of us cannot do a full split. So if I jumped on your back right now and forced you down into a full split, there would probably be some injury, whether you're breaking some bones, your hip, you're pulling muscles, right? Because I have just stretched you beyond capacity. And while our brains are not a muscle, it's an organ, but it actually operates very much like a muscle as well. And so we are now being stretched beyond our capacity, or so we think, in this season. And it's causing some injury. It's exacerbating some stuff. Some pre-existing stuff is being, it's in the forefront right now, right? Let's talk about some signs. Some signs. Are you guys with me? TJ Legacy, he gives me the eyes. I guess that means that you can't drop down into a split, sir. And Donisha says, nope. And Jackie here on Instagram says, nope. Z Fascinator says, not at all. And Jimmy House says, no, I cannot. We need to be able use this time to get flexible so you can go down into a split when we go back to business as usual. Just a joke, but for your consideration if the shoe fits. All right, how many of you eat when you're stressed? How many of you eat when you're stressed? How many of you eat as a response to how you're feeling in that moment? How many of you find peace and comfort in food? How many of you find peace and comfort in food? How many of you, your happiness and how you experience happiness has a lot to do with food? All right, these are some signs. How many of you eat out of control? How many of you eat so much you don't even realize that you ate that much? So you're kind of like in auto zone when it's happening, and then afterward it's like, oh, the Oreos are gone. Oh, the ice cream is gone. Very much like the question that we just reviewed. How many of you eat to feel happy? How many of you, again, I talked about this already, that your happiness or your experience of happiness has a lot to do with food. How many of you feel fascinated with food? You know, some people call themselves foodies, right? No, you're an emotional eater, right? Possibly. Jackie says on Instagram, I don't attach it to an emotion. I just like eating. We'll see about that. Let's see. How many of you eat when you're not necessarily hungry? How many of you eat when you're not necessarily hungry? How many of you eat although you are full? How many of you don't realize you are full until you can't eat anymore and you're ready to pass out? How many of you have random food cravings? These are all signs, right? These are all signs, things that we should consider when we're talking about, do I emotionally eat? I want to talk about the brain. Most of the time when I am addressing a question, I like to go back to the brain because that says so much about who we are. So while this may be unrelated, I want to share something with you guys. So a lot of the times, the foods that are super, super healthy for us, and this is not the truth for all foods, right? This is not the truth for all foods, but I know that for some, maybe most, right? Healthy foods tend to not be as tasty, so we think, as the non-healthy foods. Now, you can engage in eating consistently and change your palate so that you feel you start to actually desire the healthier foods. But one of the things that I learned in learning the brain and how it responds is that we have a survival brain, right? We have like this very, this very innate, flow of our brain, and our survival responses to things are much louder and much more prevalent than we think. And so just for survival mode, back in the day when we were scavengers, right? Food that was bitter or sour was, the survival response to the brain was, the survival response of the brain was to reject it, because it meant that there was some type of threat, that the food or the fruit wasn't ripe, or that it was poisonous because it was sour or bitter. And I have found that a lot of the things that are healthy can be bitter. And so our response to the is also very biological, very innate. And so it's important for us to kind of know these things. Let's talk about sweet foods. There are a lot of studies out there to help us to kind of understand the biological response to food. So to not bore you, let's just act like, so there's about 8 or 9 people on this live or so, I'm not really certain. And so let's say I do a stress evaluation for you guys, right? And so as a result of the stress evaluation that I give you guys, let's say 4 of you are totally stressed, right? And then 4 of you are not so stressed. And so I put the 4 very stressed people into a room, and I put the other 4 not so stressed, like completely chill mode, into another room. And I start to show these different foods and give you an opportunity to respond to that looks really good, or that is not really good, or that's preferred and that's not so preferred. In many studies, the studies show that the group that was highly stressed will automatically respond to the fatty foods, the sweet foods, the high cholesterol foods, the high fat foods, more than they do the healthy foods. Why, might you ask? And so the neurotransmitter, the chemical in our brain that's responsible for how we process and how we achieve happiness, is a chemical, a neurotransmitter called dopamine. And when we are engaging in cupcakes and donuts and all that fatty stuff that eventually becomes what? Sugar in our bodies, we get, it enhances and it increases dopamine in our brains. Well, dopamine has a lot to do with why we get addicted to certain things. So dopamine, what is that? So when do we find the increased levels of dopamine? When you're gambling, oh, dopamine levels are high. When you're going down, name a roller coaster, ooh, those dopamine levels are high. When we're having sex, our dopamine levels are high. And so there has been a relationship between food and these dopamine rushes. So a lot of it is how we're training our brain to respond, and we find it so hard to kick these things independently. It is because it's so much more involved. And so with this question, she's saying, give me some tips. I have to make sure that it's clear just how deep this is, that we have to actually relearn, certain responses, that we have to be able to reassociate food to other things, so we're not continuing to default to an unhealthy coping mechanism to get us through. All right, so we talked about the brain response to eating, especially when it comes to foods that are high in fat and cholesterol and sugar. There's some things that I want to talk about before I go into, how we maneuver through, addressing emotional eating. First and foremost, she said that half the time she doesn't even realize it until someone says, where did all the Oreos go? So right now we know that a lot of what is happening in a space called AutoZone. Guys, listen to me, all listeners. You cannot change in AutoZone. Let that sit there. You cannot change in AutoZone. There is a state of mind that you must be in for change to happen. True change and transformation. Let me just say that. True change and transformation. And that state is, drum roll please, awareness. So when things are happening automatically, we have to now grab it from AutoZone and drag it into your awareness. This is why when people apologize to you and they really don't know what they did, you have to be very careful before you forgive them and allow them to be a part of your lives. Bam! Well, I don't even realize that I do it. I'm sorry. Like, I didn't even realize that. I'm sorry. I'm not aware that. I'm sorry. Well, if you're not aware, didn't know, don't understand, then how can you be sorry? Because sorry is not only I feel remorse for hurting you, but it's also I'm committing myself to assure it doesn't happen again. So if it's in your AutoZone and you're not aware of it, that means chances of it happening again are quite high. I need you to be aware. I need you to understand why I'm upset. I need you to understand why I felt disrespected. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? We need people to be in a state of awareness in order to change. And so I'm going to talk about some things that she can do to not be in AutoZone, to be in a state of awareness. So all of the ice cream ain't gone. And she's like, oh, wow, I did that. But being in AutoZone is such a powerful place, and it's such an unhealthy place. There are way too many things that happen in AutoZone, like your self-derogatory statements, the way that you speak to yourself, the way that you think about yourself, that automatic talk, that can be so debilitating, especially when it's in your AutoZone. You don't even realize that process is happening. So what is required for change? A state of what? Awareness. And so she's in AutoZone right now. We got to get it to awareness. Behavioral issues. This is a behavioral issue, right? She doesn't like the way that she's responding. It's a behavior that she wants to change. And a lot of the times when we're looking at a behavior that we want to change, it's almost always attached to a skill deficit, a skill that we don't know, a skill that we haven't mastered yet, a skill we haven't learned, or just something that we haven't applied. right? And so we're looking at, so when we're looking at the behavior, it's important for us to have some assessment, to have some conversation, to really assess what the skill deficit is. We've done this before on these lives where we've talked about certain maladaptive behaviors and what the skill deficit could be, right? So an example of this is somebody who avoids conflict. So because of that, they tend to isolate in the midst of conflict. So let's say the behavior is isolating, right? And we could operationally define that in so many different ways, but let's say it's isolating. What's the skill deficit? Someone who isolates in the midst of conflict, right? You're trying to talk to your man, you're trying to talk to your woman, all of a sudden she's not answering, he's not answering, he goes to the room, she goes to the room, there's no conversation because they're in their room for 3 or 4. When isolation is the behavior, as a result of trying to avoid conflict, what is the skill deficit? I want to hear from my class. What is the skill deficit if isolation is the behavior? Well, resolving conflict, not having conflict mediation skills, or not having effective communication skills. Not being able to effectively and assertively communicate how I'm feeling, not being able to effectively communicate my thought process. Some people who don't have that skill, what they do is they run and they become avoidant to all type of conflict. If it looks like conflict, like, no, I'm upset, but can we have this conversation? It's okay for me to we can be upset and have a fruitful conversation, but there are some people that are so avoidant of conflict. It's because there is that skill deficit. Let's try another one. Someone who becomes physically aggressive when angry. So the behavior is physical aggression. What's the skill deficit? Talk to me. What's the skill deficit for someone who becomes physically aggressive when they are angry? The skill deficit is anger management, an inability to what? Regulate mood. That is a skill. A lot of people who are just like, oh my God, how am I going to make it through COVID-19? You got to learn how to regulate your mood and to do it without any type of mood altering substance, because our bodies are designed to do naturally what alcohol does. We just have to learn how to give our bodies the opportunity to do what it is designed to do, right? How do we tap into those ways to regulate our moods? And so in this particular case, we have to truly assess what's the skill deficit for the person who is writing in. All right. So we have to define the behavior, right? We have to define what it is, right? So we ask her, tell me what it looks like when you emotionally eat. We want to know how frequently it happens, right? How frequently does it happen? How long does it generally take? And how severe is it, right? So those are 3 things that we're looking at when we're trying to define the behavior: frequency, duration, and severity. Frequency, duration, and severity. And why do we need to know all this? So this is how we figure out how we're going to address it. How often does it happen when you're sitting there and you're having an emotionally eating episode? How long does that generally happen? Because what does that mean? The longer you're in the episode, the more that you're eating. And that determines the severity. So what's the severity? We want to know, how has this impacted you? Have you gained a significant amount of weight? Do you have medical conditions as a result? Does it cause you to isolate from your family? Does it cause you to feel guilty and ashamed and defeated? And so we want to know the severity. And these are all things we don't necessarily know in this question, but I'm putting it out there for your information. So we need to know how often does it happen? We want to know how long, the duration, what the consequences have been. We want to know when it happens. When does it happen? Well, it happens when I'm alone, or it happens when the kids go to sleep. It happens when I'm feeling really stressed. It happens when it's important for us to know the when, and also the consequence, because we want to be able to assess the reward. I feel calm afterward. I feel safe afterward. I feel, relaxed afterward. We want to know what that reward is because we want to be able to help that person still achieve that in a healthy way. We want you to achieve feeling cool. We want you to feel relaxed. We want you to feel regulated. We want you to feel happy. We just want you to achieve that in a healthy way. And this is when we start to teach replace skills. So there's a healthy replacement behavior with what we're trying to extinguish, the things that we want to never happen again. And a lot of the times when we're trying to break through our maladaptive behavior, we want to break strongholds, we haven't identified that replacement behavior. And so chances are you're going to go back to that maladaptive thing because you have not elected, maintained, and mastered a healthy replacement. A healthy replacement. A healthy replacement. So getting another man is not a healthy replacement because you still got issues. You still don't like yourself. You still don't love yourself. You still haven't healed from past relationships. It always applies no matter what your issue is. What's the replacement behavior? Can I get an amen? All right. So we talked about the importance of really understanding the different aspects of the behavior, but most importantly, why it is happening. Why is it happening? And so what I do is I often ask my clients to complete a log. And the log is simply what I ask them to do is I'm not asking you to try to stop emotionally eating. We'll get there. But from the beginning, I would like you to log your meals. I would like you to log your meals. And so before you do, that means that, but the logging has to happen before the emotional eating episode. It has to happen before that. So before you emotionally eat, you pull out this doggone log that you probably find annoying, and it probably has chocolate all over it because you're emotionally eating all the time, and you got to have your log there. But you pull out that log, and it has the date, and it has the time, and then it asks you to really reflect on how you feel in that moment. And the log has a list of emotions, and it's happy, sad, angry, relaxed, fulfilled, not enough. There's so many different emotions. And what I'm asking the person to do is just explore how you feel in that moment. Because a lot of the times our emotional experience is happening and we're not present in it. That's why mindfulness is so important and so necessary for us to be whole and to be healed and to be well. Because a lot of times we're not even aware. I don't know how many times in sessions I ask people, can you tell me sometime this week where you felt happy? Tell me sometime this week where you felt confused. Tell me sometime this week where you felt lost. Tell me sometime this week where you felt like I'm in purpose and I am enough. And especially with my high achievers, they're not able to answer. Like, I know I was happy this week. I know I felt fulfilled sometime this week. But we're out of a state of being present. And because we're not mindful, we're not present in this world. We're just doing and doing and doing, and we're not being. We're called human beings for a reason. But a lot of times we're just not present. And we can't even say, when did you laugh this week? Do you know? Think about that. Can you imagine? Maybe some of you can imagine people not being able to answer those questions. And so to get it out of AutoZone, we need her to really be in her feelings, where she's thinking about it. This is how I'm feeling right now. This is what happened before. And then after the emotional eating, she comes back to that log and logs how she feels now. I will tell you this, a lot of the time, I have clients that come back and report a 50% reduction in their emotional eating episodes just by logging. Same results with those who are trying to kick smoking habits. I ask them to do the same thing. Before you smoke, I'm not telling you not to smoke. I'm just asking you to log the date, log the time, log how you're feeling, log what happened right before you decide to go outside and get that cigarette. Then go ahead and have that cigarette and then come back to your log and say how you feel now. Why? It's because it's something about being in the state of awareness, really being in and being present, that causes people to be more conscious and not being in AutoZone. Being in AutoZone helps, it increases and intensifies that maladaptive thing because it's happening in AutoZone. So we want to make sure that we bring those things into a state of awareness. I can give this person tips, COVID-19 tips. But for example, one of the COVID-19 tips is be mindful of what you allow in your house. Okay? So for those of you who this is truly acute, right? We're not talking about some other underlying emotional issue, right? The tip is don't even bring it into your home. Don't bring it into your home. Don't buy the Oreos. Don't buy the ice cream, especially since some of us, we're limited. We're not going to the grocery store every day. We're trying to bulk up. Just be mindful of what you allow even into the home, right? Because we already talked about how the brain and dopamine and how that works, that you're going to be attracted to it for a short-term relief of a feeling that you may be experiencing that's non-preferred. So don't even bring it into the home. But if you have an underlying emotional issue, that emotional issue would drive you to your car and you at Publix and you're getting all the things that you intentionally did not pick up in the first place, right? That's why it's important not to put Band-Aid on things. Don't fool yourself, okay? You're not going to bring this, Oreos, this ice cream. But again, if there's an underlying emotional issue, you may very well just shrink back to that maladaptive behavior. But as a general tip, don't even bring it into your home. Don't bring it into your home. Make sure you plan your meals. Make sure you're planning your meals, you're planning your snacks. It will decrease the chances and the probability of you engaging in unhealthy and emotional eating. If you plan out your meals, those 3 meals a day, you're planning out your snacks, that's important. Another general tip is to make sure that you have stress busters. What are your stress busters? And I'd like you to let me know what yours are. Even if they may be somewhat X-rated, I want to know. Maybe I don't want to know. Maybe I don't want to know. But let me know what your stress buster is. Is it exercise? Is it journaling? Is it knitting, walking, getting sun? What is your stress buster? Let me know. Instagram, what's your stress buster? Facebook, YouTube, what is your stress buster? It's important to have healthy stress busters in this time so that when you're starting to feel a way, you're aware, like, okay, I'm kind of feeling this way right now, so I'm going to exercise, right? So we talked about replacement behavior and making sure that you have stress busters in your wellness toolbox to help you from engaging in that unhealthy thing. And so Z Fascinator says on Instagram, loud music. Jackie says running. Jackie says deep breathing. Yes, that good diaphragmatic breathing. It's so good. Danisha says walking. Yes, we need to be able to do that. I did a Facebook Live. I don't know if it was Facebook Live or just a video that I posted about 2 weeks ago. And it talked about, listen, write down a list of people, right, in your circle. That person that always sees the glass half full, that person that just has an amazing perspective on life, that person whose energy just causes you to feel full and revived and rejuvenated, and write a list of names of those people. Then write a list of those places that you love, the places that are accessible during this pandemic, right? Those places, whether it be a park that is close to your home, or a bench by a lake that's close to your home, or your backyard, those places that are accessible in this time that you love, those things that cause you to experience peace, to experience mindfulness. And so what are those places, right? What are those things that cause you joy? Those things that cause you happiness? What are those things for you? How do you decompress? That's what, 4 different lists. Write those lists out. And when you get to a place where you realize something is not right, I'm feeling kind of nervous, I feel like I can't concentrate. When you are starting in your awareness, or starting to realize that you are reacting to something, grab that list, because then you're taking a hold. So when you grab that list, you are responding to that undesired emotional state. You are responding and not reacting, because if you go straight to that refrigerator, you are reacting. That is a short-term effect. It's a short-term relief, because when the cupcake high is gone and the Oreo high is gone, and whatever that food that you defer to in your emotional eating, when that feeling is gone, guess what's still there? The anxiety, the inadequacy issues, they're still there. And as a matter of fact, they are now even more intense. This is why we have to learn healthy replacement behavior. If you go to my website, www.askschellie.com, I have a coronavirus 7-point prescription, right? I call it the B7 pills. 7 things that we have to be in this season. PILL standing for prescription for ideal living and longevity. Prescription for ideal living and longevity. You can find that on my website, www.askschellie.com. And it gives those 7 things that you have to be extremely aware about, the things that you must do during this pandemic to stay well. And so I would advise you as listeners and the person who wrote the question to take a look at that. I also want to motivate the person who wrote the question to take the time to really assess the need for therapy. And a lot of the times when we are talking about emotional eating, identifying it and all those other things that we talked about require the help and the assistance of a psychotherapist, someone that could really help you deep dive into your why. You got to be able to deep dive into your why. And this is why it's very difficult to do that yourself. Deep diving into our why would require you not being in your blind spot. And that's very difficult because you're in your blind spot. And a lot of times the people that love you are in the same blind spot as well. So when you have someone who's objective, who's trained, who's an expert, they can assist you in really deep diving into the why. We talked about how it's important to know why it's happening. What is this emotional state that causes you to want to escape and avoid? And where does that come from? What causes it to arise? What causes it to be multiplied? What causes it to be so undesirable for you, right? So deep diving into the why is something that does require a professional to help you so that you can resolve those things, gain some new skills, and apply them so that you're breaking through those unhealthy patterns and really achieving a better version of yourself. Any questions? Any questions? For those of you who feel like you need extra support, whether it's just for yourself or for your family, info@askschellie.com. You can feel free to email me there. You can go to my website, which is www.askschellie.com. There is a portion on there where you can write to me, where you can request a session with me. Feel free to reach out to me there. That is what I'm here for, to be a service to you, to be your emotional intelligent expert. So again, there's a couple of things that you can do to connect. You can email info@askschellie.com. You can call the office at 407-350-5070. You can also visit me or subscribe to my YouTube channel. Yay! That's Ask Schellie on YouTube. There are so many videos there, that can assist you on sex and relationships and addiction and just everyday finding purpose. There's so many different topics on my YouTube page. And listen, you're home and you are working on building yourself to assure that you're better, that you're even more amazing than you were before this pandemic. So why not? Subscribe. Ask Schellie on YouTube. Go and visit me there. Pick out that video that resonates to you. This is what I am here for, to be a resource to this community. Okay. So Jimmy on Instagram says, is isolating yourself healthy when you get stressed out? And so my response to that, Jimmy, is what is happening in that isolation? That has a lot to do with whether or not it's healthy or not, right? So I would want to know what actually happens when you're isolating. I want to know when it happens. Are you isolating right smack in the middle of an argument? Right smack in the middle of a discussion? When you're supposed to be at work, you're isolating in the bathroom or in the parking lot at 7-Eleven, slopping down hot dogs. So I need to know what is happening during that isolation, when it happens, and how it impacts you and the people around you. That will determine whether isolation is healthy or not. That's an amazing question. Any questions here? Oops, I forgot to go to comments. Any questions here? All right, no questions here. Any additional questions on Instagram? Guys, thank you so much for tuning into another Ask Schellie segment. I certainly hope that this was a resource to you, something that you can add to your wellness toolbox. And feel free, again, if there's anything that I said that wasn't clear, you wanted clarity, or if you have your own question, send in your questions to info@askschellie.com. Again, if you have questions, just send them in to info@askschellie.com, and I will highlight your question on a weekly live. Okay. And again, this is no attempt to replace therapy. Feel free to reach out to me if you think that, you know what, I think it's time for me to engage in counseling. And if that's you, info@askschellie.com. Again, thank you so much. Don't forget to purchase my book. Yay! I'm so excited. Pre-sales are happening now. Schellie.strugglingtokepthevowsbook.com. Place your order today. Again, thank you so much for your support of Ask Schellie. I will see you next Tuesday, same time, 12 o'clock. Be well and be amazing.